This is honestly such an interesting topic to me because, we talked about this when we talked about the priest talents. I don't play a priest or know anything about it, but all these people who are complaining about some of the stuff they're complaining about, it's kind of crazy. I mean, it's actually, I look at it as kind of sad, but I get it. We're going to talk about, that side of things today. But yeah, some people are just way, 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 way too worried about the second thing that Ian has to say here. I think this is great. Let's read this about this. First of all, if you haven't seen, Warcraft Logs is taking a poll about what they should do with pain suppression. Okay, so there's options. Number one, I don't care. Yeah, that'd be mine. Two, ban Power Infusion from rankings completely. I mean, that would probably be the best option, but that's really dumb. Leave Power Infusion the way it is now, with the uses being shown in an extra column in rankings. Yeah, that's probably the most fair way to do it. I think it worked out well. There was more than just Power Infusion that would be showing up there, right? I know the Paladin Covenant spell shows up there and that's gone, but I think there was like a mage spell too or something like that. I guarantee you there'll be more than just Power Infusion that would have to go in this column. Number four, ban Power Infusion from rankings when the player receives it too often. That's not definitely, that one's a really bad idea. And five, have two entirely separate center rankings with PI and without PI. I mean, that could work. The default would remain as it is now. So what do you guys think? Please tell me which one. Let's pretend that we're all voting. And you guys should go vote too if you do care. I'm not trying to take anything away from this. I really couldn't care less. The reason I use Warcraft Logs, or would have used Warcraft Logs, was not to have some kind of social competition with people I've never met. It would be to learn more about what I could do better as a character. So if some Blood DK out there had 10 PIs, it'd be like, that's fine. That's up to him. Like, I don't care about that. I'm not competing with that guy. I'm not there to compete with that guy. I just don't play the game for that reason. And this is why it's so interesting, because I'm actually, I think this is very interesting. So Ian Hazzikostas comments on Power Infusion in a recent group interview with Ian, which I guess is an entire, I haven't seen this yet. There's been so much stuff posted. I missed this one entirely. Here is a hell of a response. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this, but I'm going to read this. By the way, this is coming from the hit factory that is Ian Hazzikostas. If you guys didn't see the last video we did on Ian Hazzikostas talking about the game, you missed a great one, because he called the people who might now also be in question here hardcore power gamers. That was honestly one of the funniest things I've ever heard anybody say. But anyway, in terms of community feedback, one of the hot topics recently has been the return of the controversial ability. It's such a shame that Wowhead is calling it a controversial ability. It's so sad. It's such a sad state the game is in at times, man. Anyway, Power Infusion on the Priest talent tree. Are there any changes being planned to address some of the issues the community has with the ability, such as how it impacts class balance? So when I heard that question, I was like, oh, no. You know what I mean? I just didn't know what to expect. I have to say, he nails it. Nails it. This is the best possible answer I could ever expect him to give on this topic. I understand it's controversial. No, it's not. But at the same time, some of this gets back to the earlier discussion of party and raid buffs. I'm going to have to read the whole interview. I'm not sure what he's referring to, but I could see why he's bringing it up, and our philosophy there with adding new ones. Here we go. This is the end of the video. Thanks for watching, guys. It is a cooperative MMO. That's it. Thanks for watching. We will see you guys in the next. I mean, I actually can't believe that the game developer has to remind people of this. It's crazy, dude. It's actually crazy. Read it again. It is a cooperative MMO. He didn't call it an MMORPG, which is sad in its own right. Anyway, we're in the design space of I can make my comrades, and probably completely backpedals on using the word comrades, my allies stronger. It seems like a viable support role, type role that should exist in an RPG setting. Internally, it's interesting. The team has coined this problem. This is it. This is awesome. Listen to what he says. This is so great. There are two games being played in a raid group. It's not just a raid group. No. This is the whole game, by the way. There is game one, which is the game that we built, which is beat the raid boss. This is like crazy. This is crazy. This is so silly that he has to say this out loud. There's this one game that we want people to play, which is complete the content. Then there's game two. This is great. Then there's game two, which the players have largely created for themselves. Really, really, really well said. Which is win DPS meters. Beat my performance from last week, get a purple parse, get a gold parse, is that even a thing? Whatever else. We don't create that game, but many people are playing it, and it is almost the primary motivation for them. A question is, how sensitive should we be to that? How much should we be designing around that? This is actually crazy. I cannot believe. I'm really glad to hear him say this. I am really glad to hear him say this, and I hope it's a wake up call to all these people, because I know exactly who he's talking about. He's talking about the people like that warlock who left that key after I pulled a route that he didn't. I literally pulled packs in a different order than he wanted. That's the people he's talking about. They're actually playing a different game. That's so well said, dude. That is so well said. They're playing a different game. They're not there to play game number 1, which is upgrade the keystone that you signed up to do. No, they're not there for that. They're there so they can see how successful they are at using Rain of Fire. That's their game. They don't care about the video game they're subscribed to. They only care about the social elements. And this is interesting because, this is why other games talk about banning things like DPS meters. We actually talked about this on stream a while ago, and my thoughts on that is that's absolutely out of the question. And to me, I'd rather ban these players. I mean, I know that sounds way more aggressive, but they're doing it wrong. Like, that's the only way I could look at it. You know what I mean? If you're making the game more about your performance than the game's objective measurements, then you're just not playing the game. You know what I mean? Like, I can't support that. I can't be like, okay, well, because everybody's playing the game wrong, we need to remove like a valid metric to use for like progression and understanding how good you're doing. It's like actually crazy to me, dude. Like, those things should be there as diagnostic tools. I should be looking at DPS to be like, why did we not succeed here? I should have logs open for that reason. But these people have such little connection to that part of the game. I actually feel bad for these people. I really, 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 really do. Because it's so freaking obvious to me that Power Infusion is one of the cool. This was the Inning Classic. You know this, right? Like, I'm really thinking, anybody who's talking about Power Infusion being controversial, they need a history lesson, man. It's actually kind of crazy. It is actually kind of crazy. And I feel bad. I think it's all just new players, because I knew one person who was, I had this conversation with them, and they, they were a new player. They were new to the competitive, the mindset of being competitive. Pretty much just got that from watching top streamers. I mean, like, they had no real identification with it in the game. They weren't like some God's gift. Like, there was no reason for them to be this way, other than the top players are making it look like that's the only way to play the game, because they're so goddamn good at the game that that's all they have at that point. That's actually what happens when you are so good at the game that you cannot possibly fail. You start looking at things like speed running, parsing, individual metrics. That's what this is. We're not watching the guy do a blind Let's Play of Pokemon Crystal. We're watching Kizaron do a Pokemon Crystal randomizer with random evolutions, and they're playing Battleship or whatever the nonsense is. Like, they're doing something that is not what Game Freak made for them, but it's because they've gotten so exhausted by the content that Blizzard gave them. They are now looking for another game. So the question is, how sensitive should we be to that? Zero. Yeah, zero. You shouldn't do that. You want to make World of Warcraft, and that's it. Stop worrying about these guys who have nothing better to do with their time. And this is all from the top down. All from the top down. These people who are there basically choosing to fail rather than do less DPS. I mean, those people are so twisted, right? They don't understand the foundation of the game. So to even think about catering to those people, it would be the biggest. I would be so unhappy with that. I don't even, let's just say that it would be such a travesty. It would be so sad to hear that they're going to design classes and how the game works because these people who can't do anything else but just print out DPS charts and autograph them. That's it. That's the only thing they're interested in. They're not there to be cohesive team members, especially not in pugs. They're not there to actually see the content and be the best they can be within the content. They're simply there to stare at the DPS charts and flex and see how good they can do at the end of the dungeon. And if success comes, I think they're used to that causing success. So they probably have like a, like their major, if this is an education situation, their major would be DPS meters with a minor in Mythic Plus. Like I'm the opposite. I have a major in Mythic Plus, and I went and got my degree 10 years later on DPS meters. Like I literally couldn't give a shit about that. Could not give a shit about that. It could be, I could do 5K overall, 10K overall, 15K. It doesn't fucking matter. Unless it helps me succeed, I literally couldn't give a shit. And so there's a lot more to this. Certainly, if we're making a game and the point of that game was to maximize your score, maximize this number, it would be problematic to introduce elements into the game that are very random or skew outcomes one way or the other. He's talking about why they don't think that Power Infusion is controversial, okay? Because that's not what they're doing. They're not making a game where everybody needs to do the same DPS in a raid group to succeed. That's not the fucking game you're playing. That's not the game you're paying monthly for. You're paying monthly for a game where you and the other 19 players you're raiding with should all be friends and should all want everybody to succeed. And that is why I stopped doing Mythic raiding. And that is why the game is going in the wrong direction, because way too few people actually play the game that way anymore, i.e., play the actual video game the way it's supposed to be played. All they do is whatever else is being done. That's not the game that we have made. I mean, it's so great to hear these words. We have created a cooperative game that presents these challenges to overcome. That's literally the game. I mean, he's summarizing this so well. This is so well said. I don't know. People hate on this dude, and I could see why, but it's actually crazy to me how good he understands the game, like how well he understands the problems with the game. And so something in that environment like Power Infusion is a really interesting decision in a range of raid settings. Maybe on farm, you'll sell it to the person with the best burst window. But when you're learning an encounter for the first time, it's more, what are the moments in the fight that are the most challenging for us? Do we need to burst down this wave of ads before the next thing happens? And who should we PI? Should we PI a healer because we need a throughput burst to make it through this thing? DPS isn't an issue. We're just trying to survive, but we don't want to add a healer. It's those sorts of decisions that are interesting group dynamics that we should have to take, that we would hate to take away. So this is not a great example because I don't think anybody do healers really benefit that much from PI? I remember PI on the Cal, whatever the fight was called, Sun King's Redemption or something like that. It was really, really important on that fight. That plus Guardian Spirit or Guardian Angel, whatever it's called. But I really don't think there's ever a time when healing. Yeah, so my issue isn't with how you use it. It's like I don't think anybody cares about that. I think everybody thinks it goes to a DPS, right? Kind of weird comment to make there, but he's right. I mean, it's totally the case. Like, should I use my spells in a way that helps the raid, or should we just only worry about who theoretically gains the most from it and not care if we succeed? Like, I don't know. And game 2, so to speak, is also one where the rules in other places are being shaped by the community. This is really interesting too. This is now a little bit of a divergence to what we were talking about before, but it's interesting because it's important to recognize this. Everyone at this point thinks nothing of the fact that log sites completely ignore padding. Great comment here. You can maximize your number by just damaging a bunch of extraneous ads in a fight that don't really serve the interests of the group. And doing that will make you the biggest number and win meters. And the community has collectively decided that is unhealthy, and we're not going to count or reward that behavior. Just because you're multi-dotting all these ads that will die on their own, we're not going to count this damage at all. I'll never forget the first time I interacted with this. It was on the Deathwing, or the Nefarian encounter in Cataclysm. There was ads that literally died on their own, and we actually had these guys come in from a guild that was supposedly much better than ours, but I think they had either kicked them out or maybe they disbanded. I don't remember the issue, but they applied to our guild, and me as a new guild leader, I was like, oh great, these guys are got to be really skilled players because they were in this guild that was far better than ours. And they came in, and one of them was all right, but the other one, literally, he had a spec tailored to killing the skeletons on Nefarian, which killed themselves. Like, I'm not even joking. They actually killed themselves. They did not need to be damaged. Now, you could damage them. The quicker they died, the easier it was, but they killed themselves. So as long as you handled them well, there was no point in killing them. They actually did not need a single point in damage from you as a raid group. And we actually had multiple single-digit wipes. This is on Heroic, like the highest difficulty the fight ever had. Multiple single-digit wipes, and we failed to kill the boss that tier. It was something we were working on for so long. I have told this story before, but it actually was the first time I ever felt like stressed out to the point where it was being taken out of the game. I remember having nightmares about the encounter. I had a nightmare that Nefarian came and like attacked my house and burned my house down and killed my whole family. I mean, not even joking. And this guy was actually the reason we were wiping. Like, I mean, looking back at it, it's like, wow, he was way ahead of his time. This dude was so worried about DPS charts that he was willing to wipe us. Like, that's effectively what he did. We had multiple 1% wipes, never killed the boss, all because we had somebody in the raid who was not attacking the boss. That's effectively what he was doing. He was not doing any damage. So it's really sad, but it's not new, but it's definitely gotten worse. Anyway, he also says that shapes player behavior there. To some extent, we want to focus on designing so-called game one and making the best experience possible, and leave it to the community and log sites and others to figure out the rules for how they want to determine who is the best hunter, who the best mage is, etc. And this is the way they handled it with like the Raider IO shit. So it's kind of unfortunate because like I think this is really not the way you should handle this, but they're just kind of scared to do it because they know there's a bunch of people who are now literally the only way they enjoy the game is by this kind of nonsense. It's they to hear him say all that. And guys, if you don't know who Ian Hazzikostas is, he was the first. Like he was the guy that we're talking about right now. He was the first. He was the GM of Elitist Jerks. Now, if you don't know what that is, it used to be the place to get info. You know how everybody goes to the class discords now? There used to be just one class discord. It was a website called Elitist Jerks. And to post there, you had to be a credible player. You had to have success. You had to have logs that were proving you were successful. You had to have some kind of like credibility about you. Otherwise, you would not be allowed to even post. That is the guy. He was the GM of that guild, owner of that website, who now talks to us today about how game one and game two are diverging in this way. It is so, I just think it's so interesting. I just think it's so interesting that that guy knows how big of a problem it is. The progenitor of it, he knows the harm and the way it's transformed the game's landscape and how big of an issue it is. It's unfortunate that this is the best we're going to get, but I'm very glad to hear that they know this and that they recognize this and that they're willing to say, don't ask us this dumb shit about these people who are just, basically only playing the game to do DPS. We don't care about that. That's not why Power Infusion is in the game. So I'm very, 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 very interested in reading the comments on this video. Hope you guys will leave a gem. Thank you for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video.